Begin today the Gemara, 6 lines from the top of the Amud on Daf Mem Ches. The Gemara continues with a pasuk that it quoted before, She'era, Ksusa, Va'inasa, which are the obligations, Minatayra, that a husband has to his wife. So here brings another detail that's learned from this pasuk. Tani Rav Yosef taught, She'era, when it says in the pasuk regarding marital relations, it uses the term She'era, Zu, Kiruv Basar. What it's saying is that marital relations is when they're one together, without any separation. Shalayinik ba minik Parsiya. A husband should not treat his wife with the custom of the Persians, Parsim, in those times. Everyone, that marital relations is each one of their garments. Well, then there's no kid of basar. They're not 100% together. This is approved to the point that Rav Huna said. Rav Huna said, a husband that comes and says, I do not have the ability to be with my wife. Ella ani big D. Only if I am with my garments. And vihi big da. And she is with her garments. Yaitzi v'naising ksuba. So he divorces her and gives her the ksuba. This Gemara here is actually quoted in Chassidus as well. I'm going to get to the connection that there is between Yidden and the Eibishter, which are Ish v'Isha. That if the connection between the Eibishter and the Yidden is that each one wants to remain in their levushim, that there's a certain separation, so then that's not the expression of the real connection that there is between Ish v'Isha.
Can you explain?
Going back to the Mishnah.
Is this a literal thing?
Yes, we're talking about this physical world of Elam Haza. Rabbi Yehuda says, going back to what it said in the Mishnah, so what did it say in the Mishnah regarding the obligation that a husband has to see that his wife is buried? So the Tanakama said that he is obligated to bury her. The Rabbi Yehuda adds that he also has to pay for the hesped, and those times they had flutes that they used to blow, and to have a person that eulogizes. So Namaklal, it would seem that Tanakama that doesn't mention these things, that his opinion is that Haniloi, that you don't have to provide these things for the Levaya, like Rabbi Yehuda says. So the question is, what exactly is the argument here? Hey Chidami, what's the case here? If this is the normal, what's customary to have a eulogizer and to have these chalilim, these flutes for the Levaya, my time at the Tanakama. What's the reason that the Tanakama does not say that the husband has to provide this? The Amalai, you don't need to have this. If this is not customary, my time at the Rabbi Yehuda. So why does Rabbi Yehuda say that a husband has to provide something even more than what's usual? Answers the Gemara, the argument here between Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakama is as follows. This is something which is customary for the husband and his family, for the standard of his family. But v'lav orchidida, it's not customary for the standard of her family. So now the question is, when it comes to the levaya, so according to whose standard does he have to provide this levaya and this burial? According to his standard or according to her standard? So Tanakama's opinion is as follows. Ki Amrina, when do we say that the rule is, and this is a Mishnah later here in the Masechta, when a wife marries a husband, so she only goes up to his standard, but if there's anything in his standard that's lower than his, then she doesn't go down to his standard. Then he's going to have to provide for her even more. So the rule always is if she goes up to his standard. Right? One of the examples for this is Rashi brings regarding a woman that whether she has to nurse a baby on her own and take care of the things herself, or she should have a maid, someone to help her and to nurse the baby and to feed. So this is different standards. One family, the standard is that they have servants and maids, and another family, the standard is that they don't. So if she comes to a family with a husband where they have a higher standard of living, she goes up to his standard. But if there's anything in the standard of living of the husband that's lower, he has to provide for her no less than what her standard was before. But the Tanakam says, Hanamili, when is this rule true? Mechayim, while she's alive. Avalacha Misa here, since we're dealing with her burial after she passed away, loy, then it doesn't apply. Okay. And then he buries her according to his standards, even if it's lower than her standards. That's the Tanakama's opinion. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda however, Rabbi Yehuda says, this rule that the wife goes up to his husband's standard applies even after she passes away, and therefore Rabbi Yehuda is saying that the Levaya has to be with his standards, whatever it was, with the eulogizer, with the Chalilim.
So we get Rabbi Yehuda?
Again?
Do Paskin like Rabbi Yehuda?
Yes, we do, as the Gemara will soon say. Omer Rav Chista, right here. Omer Rav Chista, Omer Marokve, Halacha, Rabbi Yehuda. We Paskin like Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Now the Gemara brings another statement of Rav Chisda, even though it seems a little bit of a different subject, but just another statement in the name of the same Amayra. So Amar Rav Chisda, Amar Marokve, Mi Shenishtata, a husband that lost his mind. So now he can't anymore provide for his wife, and he's not there for her. So what happens? Bezdin Yardin Lun Chasav, Bezdin has to go down to his possessions, to his properties, and V'zonim Mefarnasin Isishtoi, they have to use his properties, his money, to go and feed, be Mefarnas, his wife, Banav, Naisav, his sons, his daughters, and V'davar Acher, and something else as well, which the Gemara will soon say what this something else is. Amalei Ravina Ravashi, so Ravina said to Ravashi about this statement here that we go without asking the husband. We can't ask him anymore. He lost his mind. So we go and we take from his property to go and feed his wife, his children. Why would this be any different from the scenario we learned in the Braisa? The Braisa tells us, Mi shahalach lemedina sayam, a husband that went overseas, and his wife comes to the Bezdin and says, my husband left me here, and I have nothing to eat. What do we do now? Bezdin yardel in a chasav. So Bezdin goes down to his possessions, and they will feed his wife. But the Braisa adds, but they cannot take money from this husband or from the father to feed his sons and daughters. And this other thing as well, which the Gemara will soon explain, we don't give her that either. So the question is, why did he say before, if the husband lost his mind, we take from his money to feed everybody, the whole family? And here it says only to feed the wife, but not the children.
So how the children sleep?
So someone, the tzedakah organization, will take care of them.
Okay, really?
Amalei. So the Gemara answers, is there no distinction to you? Ben yaitzil adas, a person that left with his mind with him, he left understanding what he's doing. He's leaving, and he must have left behind money and whatever it is that has to be there for his children. Or a person that lost his mind, and it's something that happened which is out of his control. So when a person leaves ladas, he definitely set up things for what's supposed to be, and he doesn't want that you should take from his money for his children. So therefore we're not allowed to take from there. But if a person went shalei ladas, in other words, he lost his mind, so in such a case he didn't plan in advance for this, and he definitely will be happy that he will take things for his children. My doveracha. I mentioned that there's a doveracha, there's something else. What is this? Rav Chisda says, Zet tachshit. This is a tachshit. The literal translation of tachshit is an adornment. But Rashi says this refers to perfumes and different things that are used for a woman that beautifies herself with this. Rav Yosef says tzedakah. It refers to tzedakah, that you don't take from his possessions that they should to give tzedakah from it. So the Gemara now says, Mandama tachshit, the one that says that we don't give a tachshit for his wife in a case where he went out overseas, kolshke tzedakah. Most definitely, we're not going to give the wife extra money for tzedakah. Mandama tzedakah, the one that says that we don't give for tzedakah, avol tachshit yavinalo. But what she needs for her tachshitim, for her perfume and things like that we do give her. Why? The person does not want his wife to become ugly or disgusting, so therefore, according to this opinion, we would give a tachshit, but even though we don't give her extra money for tzedakah. A person that went overseas, and his wife passed away. Now she has to be buried. Bezdin Yardin Chasav, so Bezdin goes into his properties, into his bank account. And they bury her according to the level of the husband's honor. That's the level of what they have to provide for this levaya. So the Gemara asks on this, why? They only provide for a levaya on his standard, according to his honor, but not according to hers. Amen. So the Gemara explains, read and understand what Rafuna said, that they provide for her even according to his standards. For sure according to her standards, but if his standards and his honor demands even more, so then they take from his bank account to provide for her levaya even according to his standards. And what it's saying over here is what we already learned before, according to the opinion of Rav Yehuda, that a wife, when she gets married, she always goes up to the standard of the husband and she never goes down. And this is vafil la chamisa. Even after she passes away, that rule remains.
So you're saying what the Mishnah is saying,
but he's basically coming to be mechadish that we paskin like Rav Yehuda, right? Amar Rav Masna said, a person that says, Im Mesa, if my wife passes away, in other words, this man, before he passes away, he's about to pass away, he's on his deathbed, and he instructs his children and says, Im Mesa, that if my wife will pass away, Loi tikberua menachasav, do not use my money to bury her. Shaimin Loi, we listen to what he says. And the reason why we listen to her is because once he passed away, his wife gets paid the Kesubos money. And now that Kesubos money, what happens when she passes away? It goes to her Yarshim, to her children. So therefore, the Kesubos money from the Yarshim, that's the money that has to now be used to bury her. As we'll see later in the Masechta, it's going to say this, that the Yarshim of the Kesubos are the ones that have to bury her. So there's no reason why you should use the husband's money to bury her. So the Gemara asks on this, what's the difference here? Ki Amar, that if he says clearly, don't use my money to bury my wife. And the reason why we listen to him is the nafli nichsi kameyasmi, because now the money, the Kesubos money, is already there for the Yisayimim. So once they yashin that Kesubos money, they have to use that money. That's the reason. If so, why only if he said so? Why only if he instructed his children this? Ki loy amar nami, even if he doesn't say anything, nichsi kameyasmi ramu. The Kesubos money is there in front of the Yisayimim, and they should use that money. So Gemara exchanges the understanding of this statement of Rav Masna. Ella, so rather, what he really meant to say is as follows: if a person comes and says that on his deathbed, that if I pass away, don't bury me, don't use my money to bury me. So then we can't listen to him. Why not? A person does not have the right. That he should keep his children rich. He wants his children to keep his money. And then the costs of his burial will fall on everybody else. A person says so. Usually there's a halacha, a mitzvah l'kaim divrei ameis. A person that says something, instructs something before he passes away, you have to listen to what he says to fulfill it. But not over here, when a person is saying something like this that causes everybody else to have to pay the cost for the levaya when he has his own money. Going back to the rights that a father has in his daughter. And we already learned the rule before, up until which point does the father has the rights to what the daughter owns and has, income, mitzvah, all kinds of things, until, in the age of a ketana and a naira, and until the nisuin, until she gets fully married to her husband. After nisuin, so then the father loses all of his rights. So this Mishnah will get into the details of this subject. A girl is always in the possession of her father, even after Edison, that is. She still is in the reshus of the father. Until after she enters into the reshus of her husband, linisuin, and she becomes fully married. Then she's fully married. Now the father loses all the rights over her. And as we'll see, one of the main things that's relevant over here as well is regarding eating truma. If the husband she married is a kohen, so now she can eat truma like her husband, but that's only after the second stage of marriage, nisuin. Now the Gemara, the Mishnah that is, brings up different scenarios of what happens. It's not always so clear cut exactly when the point of nisuin begins. So what happens if Masarav, the father gave over his daughter, she's leaving, the nisuin mainly is the fact that she leaves her father's home, where she grew up, where she lived, and now she's going to her husband's home, and she's going to live with him. But at what point is that change from Edison to Nisuin, from the father's home to the husband's home? When exactly does that happen? So if the father gave over his daughter to shluchim, that the husband sent, to the agents that the husband sent to go pick up the daughter, to bring him, to deliver her home to her husband. So from that point, even though she didn't yet arrive to the husband's home, she's already in the reshus of the husband, and the father lost all rights over her. If the father's accompanying her together with the shluchim of the husband, or the father sends along his own shluchim to go and accompany the shluchim of the husband to go and bring her to his home, so then she still remains in the reshus of the father. He didn't let go of her yet. Masru shluchei but if the shluchim of the father that are accompanying, or they were sent by the husband, by the father that is, and they gave over his daughter to the shluchim of the husband, so then at that point, this is the point of nisuin, and she's in the reshus of the baal, and the father loses all of his rights over his daughter.
Does it say the horse already got out of the
It's out of his possession.
Yeah.
So the Gemara now focuses on the first word of the Mishnah. What did it say? Lo'olam. Very unusual expression. It said, Lo'olam b'reshus ha'av. She's always in the reshus of the father until the time of the nisuin. My lo'olam. What is this expression of lo'olam? What is it coming to clarify with this word? Says the Gemara, La Fuke mi Mishnah Rishayna. This comes to exclude of what we learned in a Mishnah Rishayna, meaning there's an opinion. It's quoted later in the Masechta that was an earlier opinion that this Tan over here, the Mishnah is saying that we don't paskin this way. It's not because we learned in the Mishnah there it said as follows. The time arrived that they set for the chasana. And as we learned already in the beginning of the Masechta, usually the time of a chasana was about a year, 12 months. And they set the time for the chasana, and the time arrived, and the husband says, no, I can't get married today, I don't want to get married today, or we learned before, maybe there was an inus and he couldn't get married today. So what happened then? So from that point forward, she already has to be supported by the husband. He's the one that feeds her. And also, if he's a kayin, she could already eat the teruma from her husband. So we see that the point of Nesuin doesn't necessarily go from that point when the Nesuin actually took place, but when the date was set. And that date, that's it. And then even if he doesn't actually marry her, it's already Nesuin. That's why our Mishnah here says, La'olam. No, that we always go according to the actual Nesuin. The date alone, it does not make the Nesuin. Then the Mishnah said, even if she didn't even arrive yet to the home of the husband, she's on the way. But the shluchim of the father gave over the daughter to the shluchim of the husband, she's already in the reshus of the husband. Now the Gemara will say, not necessarily does this mean for in every sense. There's going to be quite a number of opinions over here regarding what do we say that even though she's still on the way, but she's already like in the reshus of the husband. So Amar Rav says, Misirasa lekoil. What the Mishnah is saying is when the shluchim of the father gave her over to the shluchim of the husband, she's considered to be in the possession of the husband for everything, chutz mitruma, besides one thing. Besides regarding her being allowed to eat truma if her husband is a kain. And the reason why Rav says except truma is because really minat Torah, a woman that's marrying a kain is allowed to eat truma from Edison, from the first stage of marriage. But the reason why we wait is because until after Nisuin, we're not sure if this marriage will be in effect. It's possible that a husband will discover that his wife has a certain mum that he was unaware of, and therefore it will undo the whole marriage. And then it'll come out that retroactively she ate truma that she wasn't allowed because she wasn't really married to this kain. So therefore we wait until the point of Nisuin when she's actually in the home of the husband. So besides truma, that's Rav's opinion. Ravasi says, Afla truma. She, at this point, even though she didn't arrive to his home, she's completely in the reshus of the husband, including even for truma. So Rashi explains, according to Ravasi, the only reason we stop her of eating truma until this point is because she was living with her father. She was still in the father's home, and we don't want her to take from the truma that she gets from her husband and share it with her brothers and sisters, and they're not allowed to eat it. But as soon as she's out of the father's home, even if she didn't arrive to the husband's home yet, so we're not concerned she's going to share truma with anybody else. So she's completely in the reshus of the husband for this as well. Ravuna asked according to Ravasi's opinion that says that she's in the reshus of the husband for everything. Or Barav asked Ravasi, what did it say in the beginning of the Mishnah? She's always in the possession. She remains in the possession of the father until she enters into the chuppah. So they were asking. They understood what this means is that she has to actually enter into the husband's home, and which is what the chuppah means. That she's there with her husband, and until that point, she's still considered to be in the husband's possession. So how could he say that for everything, even when she's still on the way to her husband's house, she's already in his reshus? Rav. So Rav, when he heard this question that they asked on Ravasi, even though Rav was the one that argued with Ravasi, but Rav said, Lava minuluchu, did I not once tell you, Leitizlu basar ibcha, do not go and try to prove something from a Mishnah which you can reverse one way or another. It's not a conclusive proof here. So why are you bringing this Mishnah? Ravasi could answer you from this Mishnah you just asked him from, Misirasa zuhi knisasa l'chopa. The moment that the husband's shluchim give over the daughter to the shluchim of the husband, that is the moment of chuppah. When the Mishnah in the beginning said chuppah, this is the moment of chuppah. So there's no question from the expression of the Mishnah that says that we have to wait until chuppah. Chuppah does not necessarily mean when they arrive to his home, but that moment when she's given over. Now the Gemara will bring another few opinions regarding what do we say that once the shluchim gave over to the shluchim of the husband that she's already in his possession. Shmuel says liyirushasa. It's only regarding the fact that the husband will inherit her. And what this refers to is when the wife comes gets married to the husband, she brings along with her all kinds of possessions, all kinds of things. Maybe she brings in a dowry. So even though she did not yet arrive to the husband's house, from that point forward, he would yashin her. If she passes away on the way, so he would yashin her. Even though usually the halacha is he does not yashin these things, but over here, and until the point of nisuin, that is, but over here, because she's already on the way to his house, so therefore he will yashin her, he will yashin all these things. But it's only for this though. But again, according to Shmuel, all other things, whether it's truma, the halacha of annulling vows that we had before in the Mishnah, a mitzvah, all other kinds of things, she's still not in the husband's possession. It's only regarding Yerusha. Now we have another opinion here. Shlakish says liksubasa. When it said in the Mishnah that from this point she's in the husband's possession, it's only for the ksubah. So the Gemara explains what did he mean for the ksubah. The ksubah, really, the husband's obligated to pay the ksubah from the time of the edison already. So what did he mean regarding ksubah? Ksubasa mai. What did he mean to say by this? Maihi, what is this? The mesa yarisla. Did he mean to say that if she passes away, he's going to yarshin the money that she brings into the marriage? It's written in the ksubah, haina the Shmuel. That's exactly the point that Shmuel just said, that he yarshins her if she passes away on the way. So that's not, Rish Lakish must be saying something different. So the Gemara brings another shot. Amar Avina loima. This is to say ksubasa me'acher mana. After this point, if she later gets married to someone else, if her husband died or her husband divorced her, and she gets married to a second person, the second marriage, her ksuba will only be a mana. The rule is, anytime you get married, a second marriage, so if the first marriage was a full marriage, so then the second marriage, the ksuba is only a mana. The first marriage, for a bisula, the ksuba is 200 zuz. But for the second marriage, the ksuba is only a mana, half. So at what point do we say that her status of her ksuba changes? From chuppah. When's considered to be chuppah? At this point, when the shluchim of the father gave her over to the shluchim of the husband. So then, exactly, that's the chiddush over here, and we had that before in the Gemara. From the point of chuppah, even if there was no relations yet the status of her ksubah changes to become half. That's what the Mishnah meant there. Rabbi Yechon and Rabbi Chanina Damri Tarvayu. Rabbi Yechon and Rabbi Chanina, they both said like Rav's opinion. Misirasa l'kel, that she was given over and it's for everything. She's now completely in the husband's possession, with one exception. Even without any exception, that is. Afla truma. Afla truma. Okay, so this is actually like Rav Asi's opinion. Even for truma, if it's a kayin, she can eat his truma. So now the Gemara will bring a braisa which will refute all the opinions that we said here, according to Rashi at least. It refutes all the opinions besides Shmuel's opinion. Meisvei, so the Brisa says as follows: when the husband gave over his daughter to the shluchim of the husband, he went along. The shluchim that gave her over to the shluchim of the husband also joined and went along to bring it to the husband's home. On the way, they were going to the husband's house. So this woman, the girl, the kala, she has her own courtyard, her own place on the way. And lalin. And the chassan himself is there with them, and she goes into her chutzner and to stay overnight there in that place. Even if already at this point the ksuba, which means the money and the possessions that she's bringing into the marriage, were already delivered to the husband's house, Mesa, if she passed away, even after she was with the husband and she went and was with him in her chutzner together one night, doesn't matter. Avia Yarsha. The father was still Yarshana. She's still not in the husband's possession.
Because?
She didn't arrive to his house.
Because?
Masara'av l'shluchi abal. But then the Brisa says, however, if the father gave her over to the agents of the shluchim of the husband, and the father's not going along, that is, right? Before the ratio of this Brisa was the father's going along. The father gave her over to the shluchim of the husband, he doesn't go along. Or the shluchim of the father gave her over to the shluchim of the husband, and they don't go along either. Or even if the chassan is traveling along with them, and now the chassan himself, he has a place along the way. It's not his home that he's coming to, but he has a courtyard, a place along the way. And they enter into this courtyard and they stay there overnight, l'shum nisuin, with the intention that this should be the chuppah, the nisuin, the full marriage. So then, even though they're still on the way, and all of her possessions that she's bringing into the marriage are still in the father's house, they were not delivered yet to the husband's house. Mesa, if she died along the way, bailo yarsha. The husband will, from this point already, inherit her because she's the husband's.
Why Ksuba is by her father?
Yeah, the possessions were not delivered yet. Even though the possessions were not delivered yet, but the moment she was given over fully, and the father is not accompanying her, or the shluchim of the father are not accompanying her, so then she's completely in the husband's possession.
Has control over her. He's in total control.
But now look what the Brisa says, and here this is the point which proves that Shmuel's opinion is right. This that we say that from this point forward, even though she didn't arrive to the home of the husband yet, she's in the possession of the husband, only for the subject of Yerusha, that he yarshins, he gets the possessions that she brought into the marriage. Aval Trumah, but regarding Trumah, that if he's a kohen, that she could eat from the Trumah, a woman does not eat any of the truma until she enters into chuppah, which means until she arrives to the husband's home. To yufte, the kulu to yufte. This will refute all of the opinions we brought before that said that she enters into the husband's possession for other matters as well, not only for Yerusha. This Brisa clearly says only for the matters of Yerusha.
She went with him.
Huh?
There's a rag in her in his place over here.
Oh, but only a temporary place, a chotzer. Only a chotzer. She didn't arrive to his home yet, so it's only been a to Yerusha, not regarding anything else. But now the Gemara will explain this Brisa that we just quoted. The Gemara will explain it better. It seems like over here that there's something in the Brisa that if you look further into it, there's a contradiction here. The Gemara, this Brisa contradicts itself. Amrit, in the beginning of the Brisa, what does it say? That if she entered with him into her courtyard overnight, so then it's not considered to be a full marriage. And what do we understand from the Brisa? Taima, the reason why it's not considered to be the Nisuin, is the Lalin, it's because they just went there temporarily overnight, and then they didn't make up that this is going to be the actual full marriage. So therefore, this is not counted as that. It's not counted as a Nisuin. Ha, stama. But if they did not talk about it, they did not make up clearly that this is just temporary, l'shem Nisuin. So without speaking, so the status that we would accept is that if she went with him into this courtyard, even if it's her courtyard, and they didn't say anything in advance, this itself automatically becomes a nisuin.
It looks like it.
That's what it would seem from the reisha of this Brisa. But then, what do you understand from what it says in the Sefer of the Brisa? And if she enters with him, and they make up in advance that here, this is a place that belongs to me, and here, you're going to join me over here this night, l'shem nisuin, for the purpose of full marriage. So then, only then, do we say it's considered to be a full marriage. But if they didn't speak about anything in advance, so lalin, then I say that it's just stay overnight for one night, and it's not considered to be a full marriage. So the question is, what's the halacha in a case of stama? If they're not speaking about this in advance, what's the status of this one night stay? Is it considered to be a marriage, the full marriage, or not? Amar Rav Ashi, so Rav Ashi explains the way to understand this brisa is as follows. What was, if you remember, what was the lashon of the brisa? The reisha was speaking about that they stayed overnight in this place. One night, it was her place, her courtyard. The seif of the brisa is speaking about that they stayed one night in his courtyard. So therefore, Rav Ashi says, stami katani. The brisa here, both in the reisha and in the sefer, is actually speaking about a case where they did not make anything up in advance. And the brisa is defining that nevertheless, we say what it means here. Stam chotze dida. That in a regular case, without speaking anything, if it's her place, lalin. So without making up anything in advance, because it's her place, so therefore we say that this is a one-night stay and this is not a real marriage here, because it's her place. It's not even the husband's home. Stam chotze didei. But if it's a place which belongs to the husband, even if they didn't make up anything, linisuin. Without linisuin, then it's already a full marriage. Tana and a brayse we learned Masarav l'shluchei abal. The father gave over his daughter to the shluchim of the husband. V'zinsa. Now another halacha that's very relevant to know is this a full marriage or not? After the father gave her over to the shluchim of the husband, she was mizana. She had a relation with someone else. So now, if you remember, based on what we learned before in the Gemara, there's a halacha of eishes ish that has a relation with someone else after she's an eishes ish, but there's a distinction. If it's after eidisin, the first stage of marriage, she gets the einish of misa skila. If it's after the full marriage, after nisuin, the einish is chenek. So the question is, over here, what stage is this considered? Is this edison or nisuin? So because the husband gave her over already, the father that is, gave her over to the shluchim of the husband,
Sorry.
so it's already fully married in this chenek.
She's been married.
What's the source for this? Because the pasuk says, Lizna is base avia. When do you get the einish of skila? That's only if she had a relation with someone else when she's still in the father's house, which is after the edison, after the first stage of marriage. Prat l'shemas rav l'shluchi abal, which excludes a case where the father already sent her out of his home. You gave her over to the shluchim of the husband. Fragt the Gemara, how do you know that Lizna's base avia is excluding this case? Maybe it comes to exclude a case where she already arrived to the husband's home. You gave her over to chuppah completely, but v'lay nivela. And the chiddush here is, even if it's before the husband had relations with her, but nevertheless, from this point forward, she gets chenek. How do you know that even if she's along the way, just the father giving her over to the shluchim of the husband, that she already is considered to be married fully for this sense that she would get chenek? So Rav answers, Ami told me chuppah behed yiksiva. The fact that once she enters into chuppah, so now she gets chenek and not skila, that we learn out clearly from another pasuk. Because when the pasuk describes the case of a naira hamayrasa, a naira after edison that gets skila, what's the expression of the pasuk? Kiyeh naira besula mayrasa leish. So the pasuk uses all these descriptions to say who it is that gets this einish of skila. So what do we learn from all these expressions? Naira v'loy begeres. That only applies to a girl that's at the age of naira, but not a begeres, which is usually from 12 and a half. Besula v'loy beula. Besula means that she was mezana with someone else when she was a besula, but not if she already had a relation with someone else before. Me'oirasa v'loy nesua. When it says me'oirasa means after edison, but not after nesua, not after the full marriage. Now what does this mean? My nesua. The edison is the first stage of marriage, and the nisuin is the second stage of marriage. My nisua. What does it mean over here when we're excluding the case of a nisua? Ilem nisua mamish. If he's saying that she's literally fully married, meaning that she already had relations with her husband, hainu besula v'loy bula. That's identical to what we already learned out from this that it says besula excluding a beula. So from here we clearly see in the pasuk shenichnas l'chuppah v'loy nevela. She entered into the chuppah. She already is in her husband's home, but he was not bail her yet, and still her status changes. So for this we don't need a pasuk. So when it says before Lizna's beis avia, it's coming to exclude a case where she was given over to the shluchim of the husband, and even there as well we say that her status changes regarding this halacha.
Just by staying overnight or something.